Hey, what's going on, guys? Lord MC here, back again with another video. I wanted to give my thoughts on where I think the market might be going this week. But before I get into those details, I want to first preface by saying I am not a financial advisor. Anything I say here or otherwise is not ever advice. So come out with your own conclusions and question everything. Having said that, going looking here at the SPY 1 day. Um, Friday closed at negative 1.55%. SPY closed the day at 357.18. Um, if you watch my previous videos, I did want a solid close below the June lows, where SPY would close below the wick of the June 17 lows, and we finally got that, closing at 357.18. So what do I see for the SPY going into this week? I'm going to give you both bullish and bearish case scenario. The bullish side, if you want to look at that, is that we are oversold here on the RSI, right? So we can expect some type of relief. Where that is going to take us, we can probably assume that it would be here. Try to test back this gap fill at 371, which has been level of resistance, and then come back down, form something, and then possibly gap fill, and then go up to target 2 at 381. Having this movement here it's been rejected since last week. Once, twice, 3, 4 times. It cannot get above 371. It entered the gap fill at, I think, about 372, but it just lost momentum. There's nothing there. It's a very strong downtrend here. Bulls are in control. So that's what you have. Bullish case, I guess you could say, if you want to have some type of relief, small, and I think would be short term. If for whatever reason we continue pushing up even above 381, I do believe we're going to fall down hard. I don't think we're going to test 400 anytime soon, in my opinion. So the bearish case, where do we find levels of support? So looking at RSI here, RSI is creating a double bottom here. Now, I know history doesn't repeat itself, but it sure as hell rhymes. If you can go back here, where RSI created also a double bottom. Back in June 27th of this year, it created a double bottom, right? Where it did come down below RSI, bounced off the lower band here at 30, and then created a lower low here. In this case, are we going to continue seeing a lower low on the RSI? We have to find out, right? It is just barely below the lower band at 30, and if it continues further downside, we can potentially see more capitulation. So where would those support lines be at? On the 1 day, we have nothing. We're below all major SMAs and EMAs. So let's look at the bigger picture here, and let's look at the 2 day. Do we have anything on the 2 day? We have this bullish shark pattern where HOP is at 357.77 and it closed just below that. No indication of any EMAs, Harmonic, where it's going to give us support, right? RSI is telling us we can continue further downside. HSI is not even anywhere close to being oversold, so we can continue seeing further downside. Same thing with MSFT. So let's look at the bigger picture. I'm going to share here the 1 week, because 1 week is very important here on the SPY, where we're at. So SPY closed on the 1 week, the red line here being the 200 SMA. The 200 SMA was at 358.16, and we barely closed 2 cents. Oh, sorry, we closed below $1 of that. Is that right? Yeah, 358.16. We closed 357.18, so just shy of $1, right? We are below the 200 SMA on the weekly. This is a big deal here. Normally, you're gonna want some type of bounce here to see if there's some type of support. So that's going to be interesting to see why I think maybe we have some type of relief or some type of bounce short term and then further downside, right? RSI on the weekly, we still have room to go down. Same with HSI and AMP RSI. But one thing that it still doesn't give us a level of support yet, and we can go even further and looking at the macro on the longer time scale, and that's the 1 month. The 1 month doesn't look good. The 1 month is scary. SPY has closed for the month at negative 9.62%. It is the worst close in a month out of the whole year. Last one was negative 8.64. Previous one was negative 8.78. So this is a bad monthly candle for the SPY, right? Oversold. I'm sorry, it was overbought for quite some time, which was above the 70 upper band on the RSI. We are now finally coming down to possibly test the RSI here at 30 on the monthly. So what do we have the levels of support if it continues seeing further downside? That would be the 50 SMA here on the 1 month, which is around 351.49. Losing this one here, I believe, starts it all. Capitulation all the way down to probably where the peak before COVID lockdown was at 327 and change. Losing that would probably go up to like 320, and then if it continues further downside, I really don't know how further down it can go. So we are in critical levels here in the indices and the market in general. The monthly still has room, right, to go down. So quickly jumping over to the triple Qs. What do I see on the triple Qs? So the triple Qs on Friday closed at negative 1.7% for the day. It did lose finally the 275, and it is approaching here this horizontal line that I have at 264.96. Call it 265 for simple math. Losing that would be very concerning, right? This is also creating a sort of double top, or excuse me, a double bottom, where we don't know where that second bottom would be at, right? Jumping over for levels of support here, if we go to see below the 2 on this ABCD pattern, is below a hop, so we have to look at the longer time frame here on the macro. On the macro, triple Qs is way below the 200 SMA here, right? MACD here is turning the momentum is turning bearish here on the weekly, right? RSI still has further downside, HSI as well, and AMP RSI. If we even go further down to the 1 month, it's approaching the 50 SMA at 265.33. It's currently at 267.26, and I do think it might just touch that this in a couple days, if not on Monday. It would be a $2 move, right? Where we could possibly see some type of bounce if it wants to go down there. The triple Qs has about maybe 16% downside to touch the descending broadening wedge at the bottom of the trend line, so it would take it down to around 223, 220s. So we will see what that does. If you're looking at the bullish case scenario here on the triple Qs, we want to get above 274, 275, call it, and then 278 at the 9 EMA, and then 280 at the 13 EMA for the bullish case. Jumping over to the Dow Jones. So the Dow Jones has this butterfly pattern that was generated back in 28th of September, and it's looking like it's doing this type 2 reaction, right? It's approaching here this gap down here where it closes at 284.80, somewhere around there, which is coincidentally here where this hop is at 284. On Friday it closed negative 1.68 for the day. And the Dow Jones is specifically very important ticker to be watching here in the indices, because it's literally so close to touching the descending broadening wedge at the bottom of this trend line. It only needs about roughly, call it for simple math again, negative 5% to the downside, right? It's just also creating another double bottom if it wants to get down there. HSI is saying, hey, there's further downside. It's approaching the midline here for maybe some type of type 1 reaction if we want to get some bounce, right? There's a gap up here at call it 299.92. But jumping over to the macro here, looking at the weekly is very clearly, it lost the 200 SMA with volume, right? RSI is telling us we can further see more downside, the same with HSI and AMP RSI. And if we jump over to the monthly levels of support, it's below the 50 SMA. This is very concerning. It's usually the Dow Jones is the first of the three indices to go down first, and then the triple Qs and then the SPY follow. So this is very close to touching its bottom of this descending broadening wedge. It needs roughly around -3%, which would take it down to 278. Losing that would be very concerning, and I have this horizontal line here where it can get down to 253 of the harmonic pattern from previous levels. So jumping over to Apple, I'm only covering a few tickers here, a few blue chip stocks that move the market, one of them being Apple here. So Apple closed at -3% on Friday, closed at 138.20, where we finally saw 2 days prior lose at 148, where I had a key target here, finally losing that that level here. It is approaching. This is a beautiful type 1 reaction of this bearish shark pattern, where it is looking like it wants to go to 134.41. RSI is a little bit oversold. HSI has some downside, and AMP RSI is oversold as well. What do I see for levels of support here to the downside for Apple? So I have targeting this 134.41 of this target 2 of this bearish shark pattern. The next level, if it continues further downside, is 121. There's also a gap down here at 120. Losing this range here on Apple could take it down all the way down to another gap fill that it has at 111, and then one below 100. Apple has a lot of gap fills down even to $57. Now, gap fills do not have to be filled, but I do think that Apple on a market crash could be very low, trading in the 80s, in my opinion. So this is something that I'll be watching here. Looking at the weekly, it fell obviously below the major EMAs. It has support here at 200, EMA here at 116, but Apple's finally, after so long compared to other blue chip stocks, is finally losing momentum, right? On the 1 day, is something I shared previously that I was watching when the market was pushing up, is that it was approaching around this area right here. It was approaching a golden cross, and that's noted by this yellow line here being the 50 SMA and the red line being the 200 SMA. But it did cross. If I bring this closer, this golden cross happened, and you would expect or assume that, hey, there's potential price going up in the future. But what you have to understand is that the candles, the price action, has to be closing above these two EMAs, and it's not. And even if you inspect it even further, you can see that it did cross up, and then it created a death cross where price action is below, and that confirms that death cross. In this case, the SMAs here was first to act on that death cross. The EMAs, which is denoted by the blue, 50 being the blue and the 200 being the green, is approaching that death cross. Apple doesn't look good right now. So we will see what Apple's going to do this week, but Apple does not look strong in my opinion right now. Jumping over to Microsoft. So Microsoft ended up going down almost -2%. It closed at 232.90. It's already below its June lows, and it have a key target here at 230.65, where if I do think it loses that, you could potentially start looking at possibly it's scary to even say this, but like 200s, right? You have some support here to 200, 196, maybe support here around 225, but it's not looking good for Microsoft. On the weekly here, looking at the longer time frame, this looks like it's approaching the 200 EMA here at 220, 222, right? Seeing if there's any harmonic patterns here. There is a harmonic pattern on a 3-day where it's approaching hop, which would be at 232, but after that there's clearly more downside. RSI here still has some room to go, so it isn't looking for the market, especially with everything that's going on with the news. You got Credit Suisse and the potential that's potentially going to collapse, with Deutsche Bank as well. We've got a lot of things going on. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with that, if they're going to get bailed out or bought up. There's credit Susie, as I like to call it. Its stock price has gone down. Right? If we look at it real quick, I'm not going to get too much into detail. There's a lot of things going on. From it going up here at $15 back in February, it's now trading at $3. Even going back to January of 24th of 2018, where it was trading on 20, it's literally becoming a penny stock here. Right? Who knows if what's going to happen with that? But we are here in critical levels here in the market in general. Looking at this ABCD pattern here, this bullish ABCD pattern on Credit Suisse. It's approaching hop. It bounced off a hop at 384, but we'll see what that does. Jumping over back to the SPY here again. Levels of support again would be this 50 SMA here at 351.49. So that's something I'm going to be looking at here for the SPY to at least bounce off if you want some type of relief. Otherwise, I do think we're just going to capitulate and go down to minimum at least like 340s and then 320s. So that's all I have for you guys. I will be streaming tomorrow on Twitch right before open. So if you like this type of content, please consider giving me a like and subscribing to the channel. It does help with the algorithm. So I will see you guys tomorrow bright and early. And thanks again for watching, and enjoy the rest of your night.